Right, so welcome to this week's episode of Work the Left Side. I am honoured and happy to announce, obviously, this week's guest is Mr. Liam Slater. How are we doing, dude?
Hello, I'm all good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Happy to finally get you on for a chat. Obviously, anybody who knows me, anybody who's watched previous episodes, watched last week's British Wrestling episode, knows I've kind of followed your career for a decade, and then
yeah, absolutely.
Obviously a massive fan. We discussed it last week, the evolution of Liam Lazarus to Liam Slater, going from being a beautiful swan in Dewsbury, to running co-running for me like one of the most exciting current schools and future promotions. So yeah, man, it's been a journey.
Yeah, it certainly has. You're probably one of the few people that has experienced more of my journey than anybody else, I would say. It's been a pretty long and winding road.
Yeah, I mean, it's been obviously based on location. I've always kind of liked to follow the big shows. We talked about it last week, your £35, £40 jobbers, but then also like the £10 smaller promotions where people, pay the dues kind of thing to start off with.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I remember seeing you also top for BWA, KGW, all those kind of shows. Then obviously onto Tidal. I was there when you're coming out with your flask to the freaking Venga boys.
Yeah. It's been a litany of different places, different people, different sort of iterations of me in various different forms. Like the one that you mentioned in terms of Dewsbury, that Dewsbury Sports Centre one was like this one-off thing where I was like, let me just try this and give it a go, and didn't particularly carry on with it. I quite enjoyed it. It was like a weird little Prince Charming thing. I was going to get like a jacket and everything for it, but just didn't end up going that way.
Well, I think obviously it's worked out all right. Whatever you decided to do, it's kind of what changed then was the Lazarus thing. Just you decided to drop it and just go with Slater and just try and keep it real, or
yeah. So Liam Lazarus came around because I was looking for like a ring name and stuff like that, and I was reading through like a Batman comic and it had Lazarus Pit in it, and I was like, that's cool. It's got a Z in it. It's alliteration. Happy days. But then I started working at NGW, and NGW and Rich weren't particularly Rich Dunn weren't particularly enamored with like the Lazarus name. They wanted like more realistic names and approaches, which was fine. It is what it is. So I went through a brief period of time where I had some Liam Slater stuff going on, I had some Liam Lazarus stuff going on, and just as I progressed further into it, I was like, it probably just makes sense for me to drop one. I like NGW was the place where I was doing most of my stuff and most of the high profile stuff. So I was like, let me just stick with Slater. In the long run, it's worked out better for me. But yeah, that was the reason why there was a bit of a split between it. And then like, not that I was managing social media particularly well, but like trying to do that, I was like, well, like, is it Liam Lazarus? Is it Liam Slater? And then I was having people like not too sure on either side out of it. And I just went, you know what, let me just cut one and focus on the other.
Yeah, bite the bullet, bin one, stick with one, see how it goes, kind of thing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
When a promotion like NGW is kind of suggesting sticking with the Slater, big promotion, big names attached, you're very credible, you kind of listen when they kind of suggest something, I suppose.
For sure, yeah. And like, it was the right decision to make. It allowed me to just be me more out of it. And again, it was something where I wasn't, yes, I liked Lazarus, but it wasn't like I was, no, that's me, I'm set on it. And I think if I'd have fought for it a little bit more, then maybe I could have got that in there, but there was no need to. And like you say, like NGW was like my high profile place, like within the Yorkshire area, it was definitely the one that was doing the most. And I made the correct choice by doing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do like the fact that it was Batman related, though, in Origins. That's many points for that. So anytime anything comic book related gets referenced,
yeah, for sure. It again, like, it wasn't like it later sort of ticked in that I was like, oh, because it's like a pit of like regeneration and stuff like that. And if I'm a fiery baby face that's coming back from underneath, then this all that would have made sense in like a first time. But I was like, it just sounds cool, doesn't it? And then it just so happened that it's like, this sort of fits in with like the babyface stuff.
That's it. So obviously, I've mentioned BWA. Obviously, there's KGW in Dewsbury. You've just mentioned NGW. You've pretty well travelled, obviously not just around the Yorkshire area. I mean, there was the World of Sport thing. I remember obviously seeing, what was that like? That was huge at the time. I mean, obviously, I think people were going into it with high expectations. Didn't work through no fault of anything. I think it was just wrong place, wrong time. Just things didn't click. Well, that must have been pretty exciting at the time.
Yeah, it's funny actually with the World of Sport stuff is that I took a break out of wrestling for a couple of years, and like I was about to kick back in, then COVID hit. But just as I went into that break, I sort of got put in contact and got contacted to step in with the World of Sport stuff. I think part of that was because they'd ended up losing a couple of people to like NXT UK, and they needed to like fill the roster out a little bit. And I think there's some other factors that came into it. I was very much like included because they needed to buff out a roster a little bit. Yeah, at the time it was really exciting. I remember being there. It was at Norwich at the Epic Studios, where WAW did a lot of their taping. And it was a great environment. Like there was an incredible amount of talent that was there. As we were doing it, we were like, this is incredible stuff. This is going to go really well. I just think that the editing side of it, the production side of it, just didn't have somebody that understood wrestling to make calls out of it. And it ended up in this weird little midland between, we had wrestling fans that were watching it and not gravitating towards it because it wasn't wrestling enough. And then we had people that were on the other side that weren't wrestling fans that, might have caught it, and then they didn't get the action that was happening, or like they didn't get what was happening in ring and stuff like that. So I think it was unfortunate more than anything else. I think it was a great time for it in terms of the amount of talent that we had in the UK. I just think that it could have probably done with maybe another 2 months of planning of, right, it's going to run like this and this and this, and then the edit side of it to be worked through a little bit more. The actual time that we spent there felt really special. Like it felt like there was something about it, and I think there was, just wasn't executed as smoothly as it could have been.
Yeah, I can imagine, like I say, when you're there, when you're in the ring, when you're having the matches, you can feel it's going really well, it's smooth, everything looks really good. And then obviously somebody gets the product, snips and edits it, and it's just like, damn it. It's like when films are cut and you get a director's cut, and it's like it's 10 times better than the original cut. It's just like, we need a director's cut of the World of Sport kind of thing.
Yeah, and just to allow it to breathe a little bit more, I remember watching it and having bits and pieces cut out. And again, I've got no problem with it being cut out. Like, it didn't, in the long run, it didn't matter that it wasn't there. But because it was so choppy, I think the flow of it felt really awkward to get into. So really, we should have been told, keep your times tighter, so they could have had like the full match through. But instead, we were allowed to go out and wrestle as we normally would do, and then they cut down into it. So again, probably a bit of a lack of experience on both sides of people being ready for TV, and then people not editing for TV. Where I think NXT UK did better was that they had people that knew wrestling, knew TV, because that's what WWE do, and off and away they went out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a learning curve, and if anybody kind of learned from it, they can go back and look at it, see what they did wrong, do it right next time, and learn from the mistake kind of thing, which I think probably numerous people have done, given the fact that a lot of promotions are obviously put on shows, been on like it's a lot more people I think now know how to work television based on experiences, just things like Progress being on the network, or ICW, or True Grit being on YouTube, stuff like that. They're all kind of working a lot more, not professionally, because I don't want to say they weren't working professionally beforehand, but more TV orientated.
There's definitely more TV product awareness out of stuff. I think people are more and more conscious now that content can go out online and is going out online. Whereas back when I first started, it was DVDs. You just slap stuff on DVDs and that was it. Whereas now, a DVD market doesn't exist, and it's just all on demand, which forces it to be TV production.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you kind of want to have your own product, but also kind of have it seem familiar, like the fans know the angles, the hard cam and stuff like that. You want to try and replicate it as much as possible, even if it's on YouTube, because again, YouTube is just another TV channel now.
It absolutely is. Like, I watch the majority of stuff that I watch on YouTube through TVs. Like, I want it to feel like a TV product. I don't want it to feel like it's filmed off of a little handheld camera, like it was when I was first starting up.
Well, I'm going to jump straight into Pursuit, talk about Pursuit, and the follow you guys on TikTok, man. You guys seem to have cornered or mastered just TikTok in general, or the social media when it comes to Pursuit. I don't know who gets credit for that.
Not me. It's not me, and it's Nathan. Nathan Black, like, to his full credit, has absolutely nailed the social content that we put out. I cannot take any credit for it whatsoever.
Alan, I was talking to Alan Kay a few weeks ago, and he shouted out Nathan as probably the brains behind the social side. Yes. Yeah, I'm looking for your, the videos you put on there. They're getting like thousands. I think you've got a couple that are in the millions of views.
Yeah.
It's mental, man. But it's really well done as well.
Yeah, I think something that, and again, I'll give Nathan full credit for this. So this is twice that I've given credit in like a space of 2 minutes, which is probably a first. But to give him full credit, I think a lot of the times within British wrestling, stuff is done as a one and done. We'll do it and then we'll stick it out online. And there's no real thought of like, yeah, but how does this look? So Nathan's background comes from a lot of performance, whether that be on stage. He's done stuff like in TV and film and stuff. So he understands that background out of it, and he's not afraid to go, let's get another one, let's get another one, let's get another one. And it works. And now that we've done it as much as we have done it, we've sort of got that understanding of, oh, this works, this doesn't work, so let's push more into this. I talk a lot in terms of like when we're filming content like this, or if we have like new people that come down and we're filming something with them, because we want to be able to share and platform everybody. So we'd like to get people on when they come along. I often talk about, we've got real wrestling, which is the stuff that we do in ring in front of an audience, and then we've got like reels wrestling, and that works in a different capacity. It's got to move quicker, it's got to be more streamlined out of it, those sort of things that all sound really daft, but they are helpful for the numbers out of it. And consistency as well. Like, you hear people talking a lot about, the way to get over on social media is be consistent. And again, Nathan made a great push of getting content out and filming content and making content with the help of all of us, that has stayed consistent. I wouldn't have been able to do that. That's just not where my head is. It's just not where my skills lie on that front.
Well, that's it. I mean, it sounds like you've got a good team, the kind of thing, everybody's got their area where they sort of specialize in. They bring that to the table, and it's coming together. I mean, obviously, Pursuit is still quite a new school in regards to
absolutely.
Environment. I remember talking to Sean Pete a couple of years ago, and he was on about, before I think Pursuit was even up and running, he kind of dropped a few seeds that it was in the plans that he was talking about, thinking about it. Man, you just seem to have hit the ground running with it. I've said a few times that a lot of the young guys that seem to be smashing it at the minute, probably about 87% of them have probably touched foot at Pursuit, or are there now, kind of thing, on a constant. How did you sort of just hit the ground running? So it just seems like, you've opened up and it's just like bam, straight away. There's none of this finding your feet. I suppose you did find your feet, but to the outside,
we had to find it very quickly, in a sense. So in a way, we were fortunate with the period of time that we had in COVID, where me and Nathan were already sort of like, well, not even massively talking. We'd met a couple of times, I got recommended to him through somebody else, and really he just wanted somebody. He wanted a couple of people to train with him as he got this ring, and he wanted to kick forward out of it. Obviously, Grapple closed, EBW closed in quite a short space of time. So we were a bit like, it's probably something that we should be doing here in terms of giving people a home base to work at. So we were incredibly fortunate that we had a group of people coming from like the Leeds, West Yorkshire area, a group of people coming from like the Rotherham, Sheffield area, and a lot of those people that came from EBW didn't really know us. I didn't have much interaction with them at all. To say they were only in Sheffield, it was never really like a town that I crossed into. So a lot of people came to us without knowing me, definitely without knowing Nathan. And now a lot of those are like our foundational cornerstones of PPW that, you know, we've grown to love and we put a lot of time and effort with. And the Leeds crew have gone on and again grown and processed out of it. So we got very lucky that we had a strong foundation from the beginning, and then just pushed forward into that. We had a nice group of people. We're always pushing for more. And I think the main thing that we do is we try and encourage everybody, whether it be from like, you know, your top ends. The easy person to jump into is like Leon Slater. Of course, he's going off and running the world. But there to like as beginners that are coming through is giving everybody the right time of day and like just having a nice connection out of there.
That's cool. I mean, yeah, that's talk about, you know, Leon. It just, I think it was James or somebody mentioned to me that, you know, he's 18. It just totally blew my mind. I think that's come up about 5 times now. I'm still not over it. It still kind of just totally blows my head.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm looking at him. You must not have been that much older when you first started, you know, back in the BWA days, because it seems like you've been around for ages. But yeah, you're still a young guy. But
I don't feel it around some of these kids. I don't feel it. So it's a funny one with Leon. Leon actually started in terms of like going to training sessions when he was about 10, doing like junior classes and stuff like that. I met Leon before COVID in like 2019, 2020, when I was just about kicking back into it. What would he have been there? Like 15, 16, something like that. And I remember seeing him and being like, wow, you're very good, aren't you? When we opened up PPW, there was a group of people that I had like slight interaction with that was like, yo, please come and join us. Please come to a couple of sessions. Like, I'd love to work with you a bit. And he was one of the ones that was there. So yeah, Leon's got a wealth of experience under him already, but the last 2 years have just skyrocketed. To go back to me, I started just before I turned 18. So I started when I was 17, but the majority of my training was 18 onwards. And then I got out onto shows when I was 19, or started doing UKW shows when I was 19 out of it. So I've got like 11 going on 12 years now of experience.
Yeah, that's it, man. It seems to be like, yeah, you seem to have been around for ages, and you know, but as I say, you still, you know, compared to a lot of people out there, you still class you as one of the young uns. Or
yeah,
you know.
like I can definitely feel that like tide changing a little bit. It's funny, sometimes I think about myself when I first started and the people that I was looking up to and you know, I was watching and training with and getting trained by, and I now go, damn, like I'm definitely older than those people that were doing that. And I'm held in like the same regard as I was holding people like back in that point. I remember Rampage coming back over from FCW, and we were like his first like little crew that he was training. And I'm definitely older than that point now. It feels a mad comparison sometimes.
Oh, as soon as you brought him up, I'll mention, obviously, because I mentioned Tidal. You know, I saw your matches against Rampage. Rampage is one of those guys that's always mentioned in like the highest of regards. I think he's been called like the Obi-Wan of British wrestling by Wally Spartan. And what was it like? So obviously he helped train you.
Yeah. It was wonderful. Like I owe a lot to Rampage in terms of, you know, just his advice, the way that he is with people, his wrestling ability, like all that. again, I was fortunate enough that he came back from FCW, and because he knew Mustafa Khan, he ended up getting him to come to UKW. And on a weekly basis, there'd be myself, Jack Turner, and Serico would be with us quite a while, and then one or two other people. These really small crews where we had Rampage, who'd come back from FCW. We had Prince Amin there as well, and we just had great experience with it. And I was at a point where I had fundamentals, I had basics, but then he really refined into that. And then getting the chance to work with him at places like NGW and then at Tidal as well was a wonderful learning experience for me. He brings the best out of whatever I do. I know, like, he's sort of like starting to transition into like coaching and stuff like that now. I'd love to get in the ring with him like one last time. Like, it would be lovely. In saying that, he just wrestled Leon at Progress, like in a tag match, and I just looked at it and I went, damn, that's like. I said to Leon, I was like, he's like my dad, and you're like my son, and it's like this weird like collision of worlds. I've gone, that's awesome. So yeah, I'm going to try and have a look at that footage just to sit there and smile to myself. But yeah, I owe a lot to Rampage, and he's an incredible talent. But also he's a big brute of a man, but he's an incredibly kind man as well. And I can't fault him for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody sort of say in the ring, scary as hell, out the ring, just a lovely human being kind of thing.
Yeah.
What we need is Leon Slater versus Rampage Brown, 1-on-1 with you as the guest referee.
Yeah, there's some drama out of that. I'd probably just sit back and let him wrestle and, enjoy it myself.
Yep, to sit in the corner. But obviously it must have meant a lot then when you beat him for the title. Title, I remember that feud, and it was really well done. The storyline, it built up over time. But yeah, obviously, anytime you get to share the ring with Rampage, but to beat him for the top title.
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed that match. We had that one, and then we had the last man standing match as well. They were both like really fun, enjoyable matches that I had out of it. Yeah, it was a great pleasure to be in the ring with him regardless. Like, obviously, like Tidal, especially around that time period, was very much like the place that had given me the sort of push and the rub, and like the young lad that was coming through out of it. And like it offered me the opportunity to wrestle a lot of people that I needed to wrestle around that point and get experience and, work with those sort of people. So yeah, like Tidal around that point was a real hub. Those like uni stylist days, like I look back on fondly. I love that venue. Yeah, it was just a great time. A lot of my fondest memories in terms of wrestling and being in the back come from that time period.
Well, yeah, because obviously I was kind of the triangle of just wrestling was you, obviously Pete and Dan. I know you guys being close. And obviously, all three of you were working Tidal at the same time, so I can imagine just to be with the boys and do what you do.
Yeah, it was lovely. Like, again, around that point where there was me, there was Pete, and there was Dan. Like, we were traveling everywhere together, and we were in cars together like every week. So yeah, it was lovely to have that time period. And again, like I remember we did this NGW weekender where we wrestled in a shopping centre, and then we were at the bonus arena. And we were knackered, like we were dying. And like there was this joke that was made, or like Pete got flipped off by like a referee at a show, like he's mugging off and stuff like that, and the referee just turns to him and flips him off, and we nearly crashed. We were crying. And again, like it was just having those people around me was really fun, really helpful. Again, we went a lot of places together and travelled around a lot together.
Yeah, man. It sounds like I say, it makes traveling easier. It just makes it more. Obviously, you guys go out there and you do what you do, but you want to have fun doing it. But it just makes it more enjoyable, kind of thing. Going back to Pursuit, obviously, I've sort of say have James Carr on a few times. He co-hosts 97 Wrestling with me, and he's talking about the YouTube channel for True Grit. I believe that's filmed at your house.
Yeah. We had quite a lot of True Grit tapings happen at the PPW facility. Likewise, we had Rise down for a couple of events, and we had Spectrum down for their events as well. So again, part of the whole facility is like, yeah, we want it to be a training facility, but then also if we can make it into, you know, a studio for wrestling that, you know, looks good, and like, you know, we can get about 100, 120 people in, more or less, maybe 130, depending on how we place people. But to have that environment where it feels busy and like that doesn't affect like the product at all, it is something that we aim to do. And again, a lot of that comes into Nathan of being like, why do we get these lights? Why don't we stick them up in the air? Like, why do we get this entranceway set in place? Those sort of bits and pieces out of it. But yeah, they were all filmed at us. And obviously we've got our in-house training show sessions that we do, and they're, again, all filmed at ours.
It kind of reminds me of, don't know if you, after how much of a student of the game you are, what you watch, what you don't watch, but NWA Power.
Yeah.
Based, you know, like just the fans at one side, ring there, set up there. I kind of get that kind of a vibe.
Yeah, very much like it sort of is studio wrestling in a sense. Like, I think it works best when it is in that environment where, you know, it's a bit more relaxed, and like it isn't as, sometimes wrestling shows can be quite pacey, and like especially in that live environment, I find that our facility works best when it is at a slightly slower rate, not in terms of the in-ring action, but just the pace of everything. It always comes off better, I find.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like I say, you know what works. It's working really well. Obviously, you know, speaks for itself. The productions that's going on there, like I say, the talent that's there. Another promotion you've just, I believe you just made your debut at, was Wrestle Carnival, and that seems you seem to be very well received by the Carnival crowd.
Yeah, I think so. So I was meant to wrestle at Wrestle Carnival back when we first came out of COVID. They were meant to have like a workshop show that didn't end up happening, which, you know, is what it is, and sometimes stuff works out and it doesn't work out. So yeah, it was real fortunate in terms of getting back in with him and speaking to Gary, and like obviously he's got a big love of the pure rules style of wrestling. It's very much something that I do in terms of like my technical style of wrestling. So yeah, it was a pleasure to wrestle Sam Bailey, who's also a trainer with Future Shock. So that was quite a nice chance for us to both get in and have a good wrestling match and prove that there's a reason why we're both coaches. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think like the whole day was great. Again, I got to travel down with like Leon. We had Kid Like Us 2 in the car, and we have Eve Bateman, my wife, that was with us as well. So that was really nice, just as a collective of us to move around. The match was really fun. I know, like I spoke to Gary about like potential for like more like pure rules stuff in different formats, maybe something that happens at PPW. So yeah, like hopefully there's more to come out of that, because I like that style. Wrestle Carnival is like a really nice environment, and like looks great as well, so it ticks a lot of boxes.
Well, seeing as we're talking pure, obviously we'll get to Pursuit's upcoming show, but I'll mention obviously they've announced you versus Ridge Ray at York for True. Can't see that being anything but a pure classic. I mean,
yeah, I'd like to think so. We wrestled ages ago. You know, I respect Chris a hell of a lot. I love what he's done. I love the style that he wrestles in. Like, it's great that he's had the chance to go out to Noah and like really like perfect his style out there. It's interesting with the pure grit rules where there's no pins and it's submissions or knockout and stuff like that. It was definitely a style that I had to do once or twice to sort of get my head around about, okay, this needs to move like this, and this, like, I'm quite a pin-based guy. Like, a lot of my stuff like ends in a pin, so to not have that was like an interesting like change of style for me. I'm looking forward to going and doing it. York will be an interesting one in that when we filmed at PPW, because we're at PPW, I tend to get a bit more of a positive reaction. Whereas when we've been in Leeds and like when I wrestled Kevin, stuff like that, the reaction was definitely on the other side. So to be in York sort of puts us on a bit of a level playing field. Regardless, it'll be really fun to wrestle in. It'd be nice to look back at where we've been to then where we are now and where we're going to go in the future.
Yeah, because I think both sides are very similar sort of timelines. I remember Chris being back at Tidal back in the day, well, sort of very similar age, I reckon. I think I might be wrong. I don't know, but kind of
pretty much
at the same time. I kind of had you three there's you, Chris, and Sam Wilder. I had pegged as being like three big names, to watch 8 or 9 years ago. I think off the radar a little bit, but obviously, you two guys were smashing it, so it'll be a good match.
Yeah, I like to think so. Again, I like to think it would be a case of, you look back in time about where we've sort of like crossed paths and stuff like that, and where we've been to how his trajectory's moved up and gone into into the stratosphere. I think I've got a fair bit to prove in the match in terms of, if people look at comparisons and stuff like that. I think Chris is sort of the standard bearer of that style of wrestling in the UK at the moment. Obviously, he's a pure champion with Wrestle Carnival as well. So there's a couple of bits that I probably need to step up into and prove that I belong within that scene.
There we go. But I've got it pegged as potential match of the night. But get pursuit, man. You've got your first show coming up. You got to change from being not change, but you'll go from being just a school to being a promotion. What made you sort of take that jump? Was it something you always intended to do, or did you think we've got enough people here now, why don't we just do a show?
It was more of a case of, often when people look at schools or look at training facilities, one of the factors that comes into it are they running shows, and that wasn't something that we were particularly doing. Now, again, like I mentioned previously, we have our in-house training shows that are basically a dressed-up training session, but it's a great chance for people to come get into gear, have a show environment that's around them, have some good quality footage that goes up online, so then they can send it to promoters to try and get out a little bit more, or at least have people seeing it. But for me, I love being a trainer. It's fantastic. I couldn't think of anything better to do. I currently, at this moment in time, don't massively want to be a promoter. Nathan didn't really want to be a promoter. So we were sort of stuck in this land of we have this great facility, but neither of us want to commit to going into that promoting side of stuff. Mainly because we both respect the art form of professional wrestling so much that we didn't want to half-arse it really and go, well, if we dedicate a little bit of time to this, we can run once every 2 months on a Sunday, and they're we'll try and get 20, 30 people in. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And it was quickly getting to a point where people were saying you're doing a show and this and this, and it was a case of, right, let's bite the bullet, let's swallow his ego, let's push forward into it. We've got a good group of people, let's do it. So we committed to doing it. We're on the 23rd of September, so we still got a good way to pushing it, again because we want to make sure that everything's set, everything's sorted, that we're not rushing it, and that we're not going, cool, we're running in 2 months. We've got a good amount of time to set ourselves up for it. That was a catalyst out of it. I then think that really we're probably going to run maybe yearly. I think we sort of discussed. It depends. You never know. That might end up changing around. Stuff might get easier. It might get easier. We might end up bringing someone on board that deals with that side of the stuff more. I'll never say never on anything, but as it stands, we sort of want this as a showcase of, this is absolute cream of PPW. This is what we do. This is how we operate. And then sort of saying, cool, we've done a show now, but we're still training people at a high level.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you never know, you might get bitten by the bug and you really enjoy it, being a promoter.
Yeah.
Or
for sure, I love the booking of shows. I love helping agent people, again, giving people ideas to see that come into fruition and stuff like that. Wonderful, happy days. In terms of the promoting side of stuff, and then not booking the card but booking the people and all those basically admin roles, it's just not something I enjoy. Maybe I've just got to nut up and get on with it, but that's probably going to come in a couple of years. I think because I'm balancing being a trainer, being a wrestler, to add another one into that fold becomes a little bit of a murkier area. Whereas once I find that maybe my wrestling starts to slow down a little bit and I'm sort of going, cool, I'm just going to take a big step back out of this, that then makes that life a little bit easier. But also with PPW, it was never something that I wanted where I never wanted people to come because we were running shows and they're coming to training so they can get onto the shows. I wanted people to come to training to get better at wrestling, to then go out and expand into it. And that's a bit of a blessing and a curse, but I prefer to run that way.
No, it's nice to hear as well, because obviously, you're putting all this time and effort in for these guys, and you're not doing it for selfish reasons. You're doing it to make them better so they can go off and spread their wings. But if you do promotions, if you just do it like once a year, twice a year, it just gives you a little bit of a showcase.
Yes.
I'm sure Nathan will smash, the promotional side of it. They'll be expecting to see like promo videos and hype videos across, the platforms.
Yeah. Like there's all of that stuff's like set and in the works. And again, we're just trying to give ourselves like as much time as possible to get stuff set, so we're not like panicking about it and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much like a cautious effort on us, where I don't know, like we tend to go when it's like, okay, now's the time to push forward.
Yeah. Another promotion as well. Obviously, I've used a promo pick. North, you seem to be smashing it there as well. It seems to be like wherever you're going at the minute. Tell us about North. I know Ryan Palmer is part of the the Left Side crew. Obviously, I had lots of nice things to say about you. Every time he's seen you up at North, I sent you the message just to give you a bit of nice feedback.
Yeah.
How do you find North? It's a promotion that I want to go and see. I'm hearing nothing but good stuff about them.
Yeah, I love North. Like, it is very much my wrestling home, and I don't just say that because like I'm the champion. Like, it's pretty much always been my wrestling home. It's where I've probably felt the most comfortable in ring and the most comfortable in terms of who I am as a wrestler. And at every stage, like if you go back through time and you look at like my development through North, you can sort of see where the essence of change has started to come through into it, and who I am as a wrestler. Whereas what I found, and again, this is sort of like my lack of pushing forward into stuff and my lack of self-belief sometimes, is that I wouldn't go, no, I want to do this. I need to do this. I would end up like sort of stuck on a path, mainly because I like giving to the shows. So I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Probably a hindrance to me as an overall performer in terms of an overall scene. Whereas with North, it was very much a case of what do we want to do, and that sort of building up together. As we came back out of COVID, I just sort of gave everything to it. And probably had like some of my lowest points from wrestling in terms of coming back at North, where I didn't feel like I delivered. And I remember having matches where I'm like, this is just, what am I doing? Like, why is this happening? And Bowers, the promoter, like gave me a lot of time, gave me a lot of effort, and I felt like I put back into that. And then we just went strength by strength out of it. I can't say enough good things about Andrew Bowers and the work that he does at North.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely going to have to get up there. So we can basically credit North with the final stages. Well, no, it's not even the final stages yet, man. You've still got years to go. But the current stages of the evolution of Liam Slater.
Yeah, I would say so. Like the postmodern pro wrestler stuff is very much born out of trying to work out what I wanted to do at North, and then that expanding out from there, and sort of going down a slightly different route of who I wanted to be as a professional wrestler, and going, what do I want to be as a professional wrestler? So that was very much born in North. I feel like if I didn't have North there in this time period, I wouldn't be at the point that I'm at right now.
Wow, that's high praise for North. If you don't mind me addressing it, like sort of say, you kind of stepped out of wrestling for a few years. A while back, was that injuries? Was you just burnt out? Did you not feel
burnt out? Like a lot of personal stuff that was happening around that point in time, and I was getting burnt out with wrestling as well. And I didn't recognize that until I came out and away from it. But yeah, there was a ton of personal stuff that I needed to come away with. Then, as I look back on it, I realized that actually I wasn't having a fun time within wrestling. I actually didn't enjoy being in and around it. I had like little moments, but I didn't take the time to appreciate what I was doing. I had a hell of a run with WCPW. I had a hell of a run with NGW, and I would be very bitter about what other people were doing and where other people were going. Why am I not doing that? But then not doing anything about it, and not going, right, well, maybe I need to push more to get down south because more people are going down south and they seem to be getting over more. Like I wouldn't do anything about it, which is, I take onus out of that. What I am grateful for is that, look, I look back and I go, well, maybe if I'd done this, this, and this, maybe if this and this had worked this way, maybe if I'd have done this, I'd be off and doing something else. But I'm extremely happy where I am now. I'm extremely happy in my life. I've got a great family base. I enjoy what I do at PPW. Like, I don't think I enjoy anything more than that. And what I get to do now is help people understand what they want out of wrestling, because I can look back at that time period and go, that didn't move how I wanted it to move. Why is that the case? And recognizing those faults out of it, and probably saying to some people, don't worry about pushing to there, you just focus on you. But yeah, like, I had to take that time away, and I'm grateful that I did. Admittedly, that sort of stopped my progression a little bit, but then also it helped me develop as a person and mature as a person as well.
Yeah, it seems like, obviously, you say, it stopped your progression, but if you hadn't have done it, you probably would have burnt out and not been doing it anymore now. So better to put a pin in it for a couple of years and then come back fresh and just hit the ground running kind of thing, or just build up over a period of time. Like I said, it's, if you learn from it, if you can help others, not to make that mistake, or try and guide them, or to speak, some good has come from it. And
for sure,
you probably wouldn't be doing PPW now if you hadn't taken that time out.
No, because when I took that time out, I ended up going into personal training full time, which then allowed me to like look at people's goals and realize that not everything had to be like the absolute utmost. Sort of felt like throughout wrestling, like when I was in it, it was often the case of like, if you don't want to be a full-time professional wrestler, if you don't want to be wrestling Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single week, if you have a weekend off, you're a bad wrestler. That sort of felt like, to me, what I was getting told and how I was getting preached to. To then leave wrestling to go into personal training, where I'm working with a 65-year-old woman who isn't particularly like well mobile, and she's had this past experience. She just needs to be able to get up and down and stuff like that. Or like a lad that's just come into the gym and like, he doesn't want to be the buffest dude in the world. He just wants a little bit more self-confidence around himself, and he just wants to feel better. Working with those people then allowed me to come back into wrestling, have way better empathy for people, and work with people at like all sorts of like different ends, which I think is part of why like PPW works so well, is because whether somebody is going off and wrestling every weekend, or whether somebody is just wanting to be here because they love wrestling, I can empathize with both sides and I can help them work to whatever their goals are. And there's people that I have at PPW that maybe would have been, sort of cast to a side, go over there and just do some roles for a while until they got bored. Whereas actually they've become quite foundational parts of this facility that we love having around, and they've grown. So I credit a lot of that to the time away that I had and working in real life.
Yeah, it's about being able to recognise and achieve relatable goals, or realistic goals, I would presume. That's best, a good way of putting it is, everybody's got a different level of potential. You've just got to find a way of helping them to achieve it, kind of thing.
For sure. And like, look, there'd be some people that like, I want to go to WWE, that will never go to WWE, which is fine. Like, I'm probably never going to go to WWE. For me to then just sit there and go, well, you're not going to make it, doesn't help them at all. Whereas if I can go, all right, cool, that's a big old task. We need to think about this and this and this before we get up to here, then happy days. Like, I can help them push towards wherever we get out of it, to then maybe change that end goal, or give them little end goals that they can get towards, that make them feel fulfilled, that make them feel good about themselves, that make them go, cool, I'm achieving stuff in my life. Whereas again, for me, back in the day, I was achieving loads. I was wrestling loads of cool people. And yet I was like, damn, I'm not doing anything. That's stupid. It's real stupid. And I wish someone had really taken some time with me, not to go, you're being stupid right now, but to go, hey man, like, you're doing really good stuff and like we're moving in a good direction. Maybe think a little bit more like this, maybe think a little bit more like that. And admittedly, I did have a couple of people that were like that, probably just not the predominant voices that I was around most of the time.
Yeah. So touching on that then, do you think, obviously, you put a lot of pressure on yourself? Do you think you had a lot of pressure sort of put on you? Because, like I say, man, you was wrestling at the sort of top of the card at Tidal, quite a young age, really, in comparison to a lot of the other talent that was around. Do you think, was it a pressure put on you? Were you sort of deemed as being, not the next big thing, but, the world's your oyster? Why haven't you grabbed it?
Do you know what? No. Pressure it was always something that I put on myself. Was always something that I put on myself. If I'm being completely honest, I think a lot of the positions that I was put into were not because I was, physically the best person there. It was just because I was just trying and I was just pushing and I was just trying to get myself in good positions and doing whatever I could to help, really. So I remember when I first started, there was me and another dude that started around the same time. He was slightly taller than me. He was in better shape just genetically than me. He could move around loads better than I could. But he got on his first show and he was like, cool, I can just stop training now because I'm on this show. And he rapidly declined. I didn't get on that first show. They didn't ask me to do it, which was fine. I remember sitting there on Facebook looking through the photos and being like, damn, why is that not me? And it was like a GBW show in like Featherstone or whatever. So I was like, damn, why is that not me? And I'm glad it wasn't, because it sort of spurred me on to like continue training and sort of say to myself, like, I'm never going to step away from training. And I didn't throughout all my time that I was in and around wrestling. I was training consistently. I think there's a big part to wrestling that is being in and around that environment. Premier League footballers don't go, cool, I've completed training now, I just turn up on the match days. So that was always the case. And again, with Tidal, I just sort of took it as much as I could and try to do the best matches that I could. And GW was a case of we were traveling across the Hull and then we were doing all the production stuff, and then I just happened to get like a bit more of an opportunity. And I just sort of took it and ran with it and fulfilled what they needed me to do in that point. But again, there were several people that they were like, yeah, we probably have them. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out for them. And it did for me. So that was always the push, but it was never people putting it on me. It was me putting it on myself.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, there's probably a lot of people out there can kind of relate to that. You can be your own worst enemy in the sense of, you put that pressure on, but you're not taking a minute to smell the roses, as the saying goes. So what was the epiphany after being out for a couple of years? Did you just kind of think like, right, I'm refreshed? I've actually, my passion. Were you watching wrestling? Were you keeping up with the scene while you weren't involved in it?
Yeah, like I was always like, so I had eyes on it and I was watching it. Probably not as much as I was doing, but then when I was in and around wrestling at the back end of it, I wasn't watching anything. Like I just wasn't engaged with it. So I was in and wrestling, but I wasn't watching what anybody else was doing. Or if I was watching it being like, oh, well, that's not good, rather than being like, what are they doing well? So I had a bit of time out as we were going through COVID and stuff like that, sort of like reinvigorated myself with AEW, just because we didn't have much else going on and I was enjoying the product. And then that sort of pushed me back into watching stuff on a more regular basis. And then as we came back into it, again, really, PPW started up, and then like my regeneration of a career in quotation marks started. And it sort of forced me to go, right, what do I want out of wrestling? I don't want to be wrestling every weekend. That's not what my end goal is. And again, this comes from the PT side of stuff. Like, what is your goal? So, I have a wonderful life. I've got a 6-year-old daughter that, like, I love being around. So it was trying to balance that a little bit. I was like, I just want to make stuff. I just want to create art that I'm really happy with, that, people can look back on in 10 years and go, that's some really good stuff there. That's my aim out of it. That has no frequency basis. obviously I have to be wrestling more to be able to get out into positions where stuff can be recorded to then be there. But that's not me saying like I need to wrestle 300 times this year. That's me saying like I want to create the best art that I can, the best performance that I can put on. And then that sort of comes back into the postmodern pro wrestler stuff of like, how do I make myself different? How do I enable myself to be able to create this art? I'll do it by sort of like sectioning off and trying to be different from everything else that's happening around it.
That's it. Yeah, and like you sort of said, it's more quality than quantity. When you do have matches, you want them to stand out, and I think what you're doing will stand out, and it makes it timeless as well. That kind of style of wrestling is very much, it could have been in the 70s, it could have been in the 80s, it could have been in the 90s. Any decade, that pure sort of style is just wrestling kind of thing.
For sure. And also, that's not to say that like I still don't have moments where, I'm critical on myself, or like I want more out of stuff, or I look and I go, what about this? What about that? It's still an ongoing process out of it. And again, credit to Eve Bateman, my wife, where she's been an incredible help in terms of like locking me in and going like, why are you complaining about this when we've got this going on here? Think about this, think about that. And she's been a wonderful help across the board on everything. So it's not to say that like now I'm like cool and now I'm a perfect wrestler that understands his goals and everything that he wants. I'm still very fallible as a person. I just feel like I've got a better hold on it. And some of that just comes into maturity and just being older.
Exactly. You're never gonna know everything, but you know more than you did before. So that's a plus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as you know more than you did before, you're winning, kind of thing. And by the sounds of it, behind every great man is a great woman.
100%.
So I can only say sort of the same. It's just nice to have that somebody just to stop you every now and again and just be like, look, take focus.
Yeah,
appreciate this,
absolutely,
and crack on, kind of thing.
100%, absolutely.
So right, I'm going to start wrapping up because I don't want to keep you for too long. But obviously, yeah, we've addressed True Grit. We want to talk Tidal, talked North, but primarily, yeah, man, Pursuit. I think obviously that's going to be the goal going forward. Obviously, yeah, you'll smash it all these other promotions. You said, if you do like one show a year at Pursuit, what is it? Just the goal for Pursuit, just to keep it consistent, keep it steady. Just it seems to be at a really good place where it is now. Is there any more room to grow with it, or are you just gonna?
Yeah, we definitely got room to grow. My aims out of PPW are primarily we have a great community of people that love wrestling, that enjoy wrestling, enjoy being around each other, and create a really positive atmosphere where we are the best couple of hours that someone has in a week. And I know we've got a bunch of people that say that about what we do, which is a case for us to go, cool, and we must continue to do that. So we want that. We want to be the best training facility within the UK that's producing the best talent out of it at every sort of level. I want people to go out and get signed. I also want people to be performing every weekend where they're out and wrestling. I also want people to be able to go and do smaller shows that are in and around this area that they enjoy. I want people to come to us from other areas. We have people that come up from Birmingham. We have people that come across from like the Manchester way that train with us once every now and again, to then go back down again. I want our people to go and expand and train at different places, because that's how we all get better. So that's the aim in terms of like we build a positive community. We then excel at every level that we can. And yeah, probably we end up running shows where we showcase those people the best that we can. Give them a great platform to go out on, so then people go, damn, look at that person, look at that person, look at that person, we need them on our shows, and then we take over British wrestling.
Nice, I like it, man. Become a franchise. I want to see a PPW everywhere in the country.
So it's funny, like that sort of got mentioned like once or twice, but I don't know if and probably would do, probably being quite self-serving here. I don't know whether PPW exists in the same way that it does without me and without Nathan being there and being locked into it. Would I like to see PPW all over the place? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a community that is built into it that is within us. I might be wrong on that. We might be able to franchise it and create that other places. That's definitely a down the line sort of thing of expanding out more that way. What I'm more interested in is the people that have given their time to us at the moment. How can I serve them the best?
Yeah, no, rightly so, dude. And just from a fan's perspective, when you go to shows and you hear stuff and people talk, from a lot of the shows that I've been to around this area, the general feedback is, a lot of the talent have just got a lot better since COVID over the last 12 months, 18 months. And a lot of that is credited to pursuit from a fan's perspective or from people that I know. So again,
and also it's a credit to themselves as well, to invest in time in themselves, being around a good bunch of people. But I mean, overall, I do think the standard of British wrestling is back on an increase again. I try and keep up with as much as I can around the region. There are people that are doing some really good stuff at the moment. Spurs me on even more because then I go, cool, if they're getting better over there, we need to be getting even better over here. But yeah, I like to think that we have a great positive influence on a lot of the British wrestling around this Yorkshire scene.
Yeah, but yeah, again, from a fan's perspective, I would second that. And from people I've spoken to and opinions, there's nothing but positive. It's kind of like I'll just tie it back and wrap it up with. I spoke to somebody ages ago about Rampage. I'll end it on a Rampage. And there's it seems like the mindset in the wrestling world was if you worked with somebody and they were just bad or they weren't quite safe or they didn't know what they were doing, you refused to work with them again until suddenly it's like, it's been trained by Rampage. All of a sudden, it's like, right, fine. If he's been trained by Rampage, we know he's good. W's got to have that reputation kind of things where if anybody comes from that school, they're good to be booked.
I'd like to think that everybody that we're putting out has talent in different ways. I'm not expecting everybody to be like the greatest wrestler, like full stop, but everybody has an area where they excel, where they can be booked in a capacity that enables them to be the best on the show, whether that be an entertainer, a talker, like in tag team scenarios, all that sort of stuff. I want to cover all bases, not just being like, oh, we do fantastic like grappling. We cover everything and we get the best out of everybody that we can.
Well, yeah, wrestling's a circus. You've got your
absolutely
Ridge, Rain or Slater. You've got a Wing Commander Nash.
Absolutely.
So yeah, cover the bases, make everybody, like I say, it's just recognizing achievable goals and making sure they exceed at those, regardless of whether it's in ring, whether it's working on charisma, stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And it's allowing people to go like, hey, maybe they're getting overdoing this. Like I know some people can look at Leon and be like, oh, well, maybe I need to be doing like Swanton 450s. And no, you just need to be the best you possible. And then you can both be on the show together rather than everybody competing in that way. Like, especially around this area, I don't think that's been something that's been particularly bantered previously.
Right. Right. As I said, Simon, I said about 5 minutes ago I was going to let you go, and I just started rambling. So I will. Do you want to plug the socials? Get eyes on?
Yeah. So I'm on stuff as Liam Slater. SLTR is usually like the abbreviation that I use on that. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter as well. PPW is Pursuit Pro Wrestling most places. We've got Facebook, Instagram. I sort of run the Twitter, but it's mainly there just to be there, and we have the TikTok as well. If people want to get in contact to maybe like start up or just inquire into stuff, the email address is admin@pursuitprowrestling.com. So that's an easy way to get in touch with us, or just via social media DMs, and we answer everything that comes through.
Nice. Yeah, the biggest compliment I can give you guys, besides everything I've said previously, is it just seems professional.
Thank you. That's the aim.
So obviously followers, highly recommend. If you've got TikTok, follow on TikTok. It's an absolute blast. If you go down the rabbit hole, you've lost a few hours of your day just watching the videos. Follow on obviously Twitter, WTLS420. You know where to find us. I'll post links in the description. Hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.
Cheers, man. Thank you.